Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to a time before time had a name. The air is thick with moisture, the ground steams beneath your bare feet, and somewhere off in the distance, something large is breathing loudly. Welcome to Earth. 10 days before the dinosaurs died. You're standing in a jungle that doesn't know it's doomed. Vines as thick as your arm curl across tree, trunks taller than cathedrals. Ferns reach shoulder height. It smells like sulfur, wet bark, and something vaguely rotten. Kind of like that forgotten Tupperware in your fridge, but with teeth. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post where you're tuning in from, and what time it is where you are. Always cool seeing bedtime hours across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first sound you hear is a low, nasal honking, like a goose trying to play a tuba. That's Parasaurolophus, a duck-billed dinosaur whose head crest works like a built-in French horn. It's part morning greeting, part prehistoric flex. Around you, the Cretaceous jungle is already awake. You? Not so much. Your bed was a patch of moss beneath a magnolia-like tree. Historians still argue whether flowering plants were as widespread in the late Cretaceous as current fossil finds suggest, but either way, your back disagrees with the evolutionary timeline. You stand slowly, swatting a dragonfly the size of your forearm. These are not exaggerations. Meganeura-like insects were real, though they peaked earlier than this era. Still, the tropics here seem happy to serve up supersized versions of everything, including mosquitoes with visible fangs. It's already hot. Not just need a fan, hot. This is jungle sound at 7 a.m., and humidity slaps you like a damp towel every time you move. You're sweating in places you didn't know had sweat glands. And this is day one. You wander through the underbrush, leaves squeaking against your arms. Every step is cautious, because even the plants want you dead. That vine, it's covered in thorns. That patch of grass hides a burrow that just hissed at you. You don't look back. A sudden rustle above, and your heart drops into your stomach. A shadow swoops low, but it's just a Quetzalcoatlus, one of the largest flying animals in Earth's history, wingspan the size of a small plane. It doesn't care about you. It's scanning the open clearings for something it can carry off. You're too weird-shaped and smell like fear. As you trudge forward, your brain starts cataloging threats. Everything here moves like it owns the place. Because it does. You're the weird little alien. You find a stream, a miracle, crystal clear, cool, and lined with pebble-smooth stones. You drop to your knees, cup the water, and drink. It tastes like mineral-rich tea and the relief of not dying of dehydration. But you also catch your reflection. Oh no, you are disgusting. Your face is streaked with dirt, your eyes bloodshot, your hair matted with leaves and possibly a bug nest. You look like someone who lost a fight with a compost bin. But hey, alive. From the tree comes a low groan. A massive shape emerges, swaying as it walks. Alamosaurus. You freeze. It's as tall as a 5-story building and has the neck of a hydraulic crane. Despite its size, it walks like it's underwater. Slow, deliberate, ancient. It doesn't notice you. And then you notice you're not alone. Tiny birds flutter along its back. But wait, they're not birds. They're microraptors, feathered, 4-winged dinosaur relatives who may glide from tree to tree like rebellious flying squirrels. One of them stares at you with a side eye so scornful it could end your career if you had one here. Another groan. Another Alamosaurus. It's a whole herd now, moving slowly through the brush like elephants on molasses. They aren't afraid. Nothing here hunts them, usually. You back away, careful not to snap a twig. Because while they're herbivores, startled by tiny human is not the way you want to be crushed into a footprint fossil. You hike for hours, the sun climbing higher, your skin feeling like it's roasting in slow motion. Fun fact: the ozone layer in the late Cretaceous might have been thinner, especially if volcanic activity was already ramping up. So congratulations, you're not just sunburned. You're historically accurate sunburned. Eventually, the jungle thins. You find a small ridge, climb it, and gasp. A valley stretches out before you, wide, green, alive. Massive creatures graze along riverbanks, some taller than buildings. Smoke curls from a faraway mountain, and overhead, the sky is just a little too quiet. 10 days left. You don't exactly choose to have breakfast with behemoths. It just kind of happens. One moment you're tiptoeing along the ridge, hoping your knees don't give out from hunger and heat exhaustion, and the next, you're staring into the gentle, blinking eye of a dinosaur the size of a yacht. Edmontosaurus. To be specific, it's got that mellow cow vibe going for it, though its duckbill face is honestly kind of hard to take seriously. Still, it chews lazily on a clump of ferns, watching you the way a bored commuter watches pigeons. No judgment, just a resigned realization that yes, you exist, and no, it's not moving for you. A second Edmontosaurus ambles up behind the first, snorting as it flops down beside a muddy stream. The water's thick with algae and wriggling prehistoric minnows, and while it smells like a compost bin, it's still cooler than the back of your neck. You squat beside the dinosaurs, not close enough to touch, obviously, unless you want to lose a rib, and nibble the last of the weird, bitter fruit you scavenged yesterday. You're not sure if it's technically edible, but your stomach's already staging a mutiny. So it'll have to do. Tiny lizards skitter past your ankles. One stops and blinks at you. You blink back. It sticks its tongue out and zips away. You're bonding with wildlife now. This is your life. A buzzing hum builds in the air. You glance up. Not a plane, not a drone. Obviously, it's a swarm. Flies? No. Bees? Worse. Cretaceous gnats. Smaller than a raisin. But traveling in dense clouds, these little nightmares are more persistent than your high school crush and twice as annoying. You scramble upwind, flailing your arms, looking like a rejected interpretive dancer. The Edmontosaurus doesn't even flinch, its tail whipping lazily in the mud, its thick skin unfazed by the insect plague. You, meanwhile, are 90% welts. Eventually you find shelter behind a toppled log, crusted with moss and suspiciously warm. You don't question it. You just collapse, breathing hard, trying not to cry in front of a tree. But trees, turns out, are judgmental too. A beetle the size of your hand crawls out and tries to share your shade. Nope, absolutely not. You give the beetle its space and shuffle further down the log, dignity in tatters. Then crunch. Not you. Something near you. You freeze. A low, thrumming growl rumbles from the underbrush. You slowly turn your head. There, in the dappled green, is something you really hoped you'd never see. A Dakotaraptor. It's smaller than A.T. Rex, sure, but that's like saying a chainsaw is smaller than a bulldozer. It's still plenty deadly. Long tail, feathered arms, sickle-shaped toe claw, and most importantly, it is definitely looking at you. It steps forward with the kind of confidence that says, "You're the weirdest squirrel I've ever seen, but I'm hungry enough to find out if you crunch." You do not crunch. You hope. Now's where you recall that historical fact you once read in a museum. The Dakotaraptor likely hunted in packs. Congratulations. You're not just in danger. You might be the opening act for dinner. You back away slowly, keeping eye contact. Historians still argue whether raptors use coordinated tactics or just mob things with chaotic hunger. But either way, you don't want to be the test subject. You spot a fallen tree. If you can just climb it, nope, It's covered in something furry. Mold? Moss? Is it breathing? Not important. You dash to the next bush, flinging yourself into a thicket that smells aggressively like pine and regret. The Dakotaraptor lunges, but hesitates. You're in a narrow space now, too tight for easy movement. Maybe it gives up? Nope. It lets out a bark, almost a yip, and something rustles in the trees behind you. Its friend. Your only hope now is verticality. You scramble up the nearest tree. Not very high, just enough to wedge yourself between two limbs and hold still. The bark scrapes your arms. Your heart tries to punch out your ribs. Below, two Dakotaraptors pace. Sniffing, circling. One even jumps, close enough to make the branch quake. You hold your breath. After a few minutes that feel like years, they lose interest. Maybe you smell too weird. Maybe they remember the last time they got a mouthful of moss and trauma. Either way, they slip off into the ferns, and you are alone again. Alone and starving. Eventually, you slide back down. Carefully. Every leaf sounds like thunder now. Every step is a cautious shuffle of a person who's not sure if they're in someone's territory or someone's digestive tract. You find another stream, drink more algae-flavored water, and spot something miraculous. Eggs. Not chicken eggs. These are larger, oval, speckled with red-brown splotches, and nestled in a hollow. You could eat one, but also what if Mom comes back? You hesitate, then decide not to die today. You move on, stomach still protesting. At the edge of a clearing, you catch a glimpse of something small and fast. It's a trudon, maybe one of the most intelligent dinosaurs, according to fossilized brain-to-body ratios. Historians still argue whether trudon was as smart as a modern bird or closer to a dog. Either way, it's watching you, and then, unexpectedly, it runs. Not from you, past you. You turn. The ground is vibrating. Something is coming. The vibration starts small, like a distant subwoofer thumping under the Earth's crust. You pause, eyes wide, knees locking into place like they're afraid to take another step. Something massive is approaching, and it's not walking. It's charging. Branches crack. Birds scatter. The entire jungle seems to inhale sharply. And then, through the foliage, it bursts into view. A Dakotaraptor? No. This thing makes the raptors look like angry poultry. It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And oh, it is not having a good day. The first thing you notice is its head, massive, angular, with teeth that seem to shimmer as sunlight glints off old meat and bone chips. The second thing you notice is the body it's chasing, another T-Rex, or maybe a rival, or a mate. Historians still argue whether Rex was truly a solitary predator, or if they occasionally tolerated each other in specific situations, like dinner parties or territory disputes. Either way, these two are not sharing snacks. They slam into each other, and the sound is obscene. Bone cracks. A tree splinters. You're so stunned you forget to hide, until a chunk of flying bark whizzes past your face like nature's throwing star. You dive behind a boulder. It's warm, either sun-heated or recently urinated on. Honestly, you don't care. You just stay there, curl like a nervous pretzel, as two apex predators wrestle 30 meters away. The roar is so loud it rearranges your organs. Eventually, one of the Rex backs off, limps into the trees. The other, bloody but victorious, lets out a slow, triumphant growl, then begins feeding on whatever's left. You do not peek. You do not move. When the noises fade and the jungle dares to exhale again, you slowly uncurl yourself. You are shaking. Your knees are useless. And your face feels weird until you realize you've been crying just a little. That's okay. Everyone cries during extreme stress or prehistoric murder displays. You stagger away, try and put distance between yourself and King Murder Lizard. When something sharp catches your foot, you stumble, fall. It's a fossil. Okay, not fossilized yet, but it's a bone. Long, slightly curved, still red with whatever goo passes for dinosaur marrow. You don't stick around to identify the species. Instead, you limp into a dense grove of horsetail plants, tall, reed-like stalks that brush against your face. You'd think this would be comforting. It is not. Something hisses just beneath the foliage. You freeze. Again, it's a snake. Sort of. Technically, it's an early snake ancestor, probably Coniophis, shorter than modern pythons, but still snake enough to trigger every phobia you've got. It slithers away disinterestedly, which feels like an insult. You keep moving. There's something hypnotic about how the forest feels when you're not being actively hunted. It breathes. Wind rustles leaves in lazy patterns. Distant calls echo like questions you can't answer. The air is hot, yes, but also full of green smells, sap, bark, moss, decay. Everything alive and dying at the same time. A weird peace settles in. That's when you hear music? Not really, but close. A series of rhythmic thuds and chirps echo across the canopy. You climb a low rise, push past a curtain of vines, and see them. Pachycephalosaurs. Dome-headed dinosaurs. Their skulls thick as bowling balls. They're knocking noggins. Literally. Two males circle, lower their heads, and charge, slamming into each other with a crack like dropped coconuts. You wince. Scientists still debate the purpose of those skulls. Some argue they were just for show, visual dominance. Others say they were built for ramming, possibly with reinforced bone structures in the neck. Watching now, you're on Team Ram. One of them even reels back, dazed, clearly rethinking life choices. You sit and watch for a while. It's like a slow-motion, prehistoric sumo match. Occasionally one lets out a honking snort, which ruins attention a bit. After a while, they lose interest in each other and wander off. You pick your way down the slope, half hoping they left behind fruit or a forgotten snack. Instead, you find something else, a nest, a shallow bowl in the earth, surrounded by ferns, with 4 cracked eggs and a smell that makes your stomach do a backflip. You crouch beside it, fascinated. But then you hear it, a soft click, like someone stepping on twigs behind you. You turn slowly. There she is. Not A.T. Rex. Thank the stars, but still formidable, a mother Therizinosaurus. Imagine a scaly sloth crossed with an angry parrot. Now give it 6-inch claws and the emotional range of a tired zookeeper. That's her. She blinks at you. You blink back. You both consider each other. Then, gracefully, carefully you stand. You back away. 1 step. 2 steps. She doesn't move. You mouth the words "I'm sorry" for no good reason. Then you run. You sprint through underbrush, heart pounding, lungs shrieking, until you reach a wide clearing full of ferns and collapse. The sun is lower now. You've made it through one more terrifyingly vivid day. Congratulations. You are not eaten. Yet, you sleep like someone who's just been chased by several evolutionary mistakes and insulted by a dinosaur with salad hands, which is to say, barely. You wake at dawn curled beneath a fan of giant ferns, covered in sweat, plant debris, and one very persistent ant. Your legs ache. Your ribs feel bruised. Your brain? A hot soup of anxiety and dehydration. It's day 4. And you've reached the part of the survival story where even your dreams smell like mildew. Time to move. You rise stiffly, brushing off leaves, and try not to think about what that squishy thing under your elbow might have been. The jungle greets you with its usual chorus of chirps, croaks, and buzzing. But beneath it, a deeper hum lurks, almost like something breathing through the earth itself. It's swamp day. As you push through the undergrowth, The ground starts to change. Firmer soil becomes squelchy. Then it becomes spongy. Then you're sinking. Slowly, casually like a biscuit in tea. You yank your foot out of the mud with a loud slurp. Welcome to the Mesozoic wetlands. The air here is worse than ever, thick with rot and pollen, the kind of air that clings to your tongue and tastes like wet cardboard and foot. The humidity is no longer annoying. It's weaponized. You're sweating so hard it looks like you've been personally attacked by a garden hose. Up ahead, mangrove-like trees twist out of the brackish water. Their roots rise above the surface like gnarled fingers. You wade in cautiously, slipping between tangles, using fallen branches as makeshift stepping stones. Something bubbles nearby. You freeze. A pair of eyes breaks the water's surface. Dinosaurs. Imagine a crocodile. Now triple it. Then imagine it looks at you like a tourist, wondering if you're edible. Dinosaurs is one of the largest crocodiliforms to ever live, possibly over 30 feet long. It's the kind of predator that didn't chase things. It just waited for you to get close enough to regret your life choices. You stand very still. Your foot cramps. A fly crawls across your nose. You do not sweat it. You just breathe. Then, slowly, the croc sinks beneath the surface again. Disinterested? Maybe. Saving you for later? Possibly. Historians still argue whether Dinosaurs regularly hunted dinosaurs or scavenged, but at this moment, you're not concerned with the debate. You're just glad you didn't get Jurassic jumped. You slog out of the swamp, legs coated in slime, arms itching from what you pray is just algae. You find a rise of dry land, barely, and collapse beside a fallen tree that smells marginally less like death. Now would be a great time for sunscreen. Too bad yours expired 65 million years ago. In a grim twist of fate, ancient Egyptians used crocodile dung as a form of sun protection. You consider your options. Glance back toward the swamp. Decide, no, absolutely not. Instead, you tear a few broad leaves from a nearby plant and drape them over your shoulders. They leak sap. Your skin breaks out in a rash almost instantly. Great. Now you're itchy and glowing slightly. Good job. As you sit there sulking, a sudden burst of spores rains down from above. Ferns the size of Volkswagens are releasing their payloads. Spores float like golden dust through the air, catching the sunlight in delicate clouds. It's beautiful. And then you sneeze. Loudly, violently. 3 times in a row. Birds scatter. Somewhere, something snarls. You wipe your nose on your sleeve and keep moving. By midday, the sun is high overhead, filtering through the canopy in heavy beams. You come across a marshy opening filled with thick moss, lily-like plants, and frogs the size of lunchboxes. One croaks and startles itself into the water. You crouch to drink from a trickle of water at the edge and spot something half buried in the mud. You dig it out carefully, what looks like a shell, wide and ridged. An ammonite, a prehistoric relative of the modern nautilus, long extinct by now, except maybe not quite. You spot more scattered in the shallow pools. Some are just shells. Others move. Historians still argue whether some cephalopod species survive longer than we think, particularly in isolated ecosystems. You watch one shift under the water, a spiraling curl that flicks away with startling speed. You're too tired to be amazed. You just file it away under weird, but not trying to eat me and move on. In the late afternoon, the clouds begin to gather. Not the pretty, puffy kind. The towering, bruise-colored kind. You smell the storm before you hear it. Ozone, wet leaves, that faint coppery tang that screams lightning is coming. You hustle for cover, slipping into a half-hollowed tree trunk that's big enough to sit in. You huddle there as thunder cracks overhead. The rain comes suddenly, walls of water crashing through the jungle, flattening ferns. carving rivulets in the mud. The tree sways slightly. You pray it stays upright. Lightning forks across the sky, and for a split second, everything turns blue-white. You see the outline of something enormous in the distance. Soropozidin, maybe, plodding through the rain like it doesn't even notice the weather. You, however, are drenched, freezing, and surrounded by frogs trying to share your shelter. One lands on your lap. You sigh. Fine, you whisper. Make yourself a home. And somehow, despite everything, the rhythmic patter of rain on leaves becomes soothing. You lean back, eyes fluttering shut, and for a moment, just a moment, you rest. The storm passes in the night, though it leaves a mess in its wake. When you crawl out of your hollow tree at dawn, the jungle smells like wet earth, sap, and something acrid. You sniff the air, nose wrinkling. It's sulfur, stronger than before. Something is brewing. You climb a ridge for a better view, squelching through mud, slipping on roots, your stomach grumbling like a disgruntled mammoth. From the top, the sky looks bruised, grayish with streaks of brown, and on the far horizon, a plume of smoke curls upward in lazy spirals. Volcanoes. Not surprising, really. You're in the late Cretaceous, and tectonic activity is having a field day. Geologists still debate whether the Deccan traps, massive volcanic eruptions in what's now India, were already active at this point. If they were, then the atmosphere is slowly being poisoned by gases like sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide, which might have helped soften the blow of what's coming in just over a week. But you're not thinking about global extinction. You're thinking, what in the name of prehistoric oatmeal is that smell? You descend the slope toward a clearing fringed with strange, twisted trees. Their bark peels in strips. The soil underfoot crackles, dry and hot despite the recent storm. And in the center, like a wound in the earth, is a steaming vent. It hisses. You do not get closer. You officially enter geothermal territory. The air is hot, yes, but in a weird, suffocating way. It feels wrong. Thick, almost metallic. You back away slowly, eyes watering, chest tightening. The ground trembles beneath your feet, just slightly, like a muscle twitch in the planet's skin. A loud crack echoes nearby, and a tree splits down the middle, smoking from its core. You decide you've seen enough. You head downhill, legs wobbly from heat and adrenaline. As you re-enter thicker jungle, the canopy closes over you like a damp umbrella, and then you hear it again, that humming, a low, bone-deep vibration, like a didgeridoo being played in reverse. This time, it's not an animal. It's the earth. You crouch beside a stream, splash cold water on your face, and realize your hands are trembling. Whether it's exhaustion, nerves, or volcanic gases slowly cooking your brain, who's to say? You need food, proper food, not moss, not mystery fruit. You spot movement ahead, something small and twitchy. You stalk toward it carefully, ducking low behind shrubs. It's a lizard, about the size of a toaster, broad-bodied, with a frill on its head. You grab a stick. You inch closer, and just as you lunge, wham! The lizard vanishes in a blur. A bird-like creature swoops in and snatches it mid-pounce. You hit the ground, stunned. The thief is perched nearby now, preening. Avisaurus, a primitive bird with teeth, claws, and a serious attitude problem. It clicks its beak at you like it knows what it's done. Rude. You throw your stick. It doesn't care. Fine. Plan B. You go for grubs. You overturn logs, sift through damp leaves, and finally, find a cluster of fat, white larvae squirming in the wood pulp. They look like something a reality show would use in a gross-out challenge. You eat them. They taste like mushrooms and old sadness. You sit there chewing miserably when something flits past your ear. A flash of iridescent blue. Then another. Insects. But not just any insects. Dragonflies. Dozens of them. Their wings catching the light. Their movements erratic. They hover near your face like curious drones. One lands on your knee. It's about the length of your hand and watches you with giant, compound eyes. You stare back. It's oddly calming. You don't even flinch when it takes off again, leaving a ticklish breeze in its wake. Historians still argue how oxygen levels in this era might have allowed insects to grow to such ridiculous sizes. Some say it was atmospheric pressure. Others point to predator scarcity. Whatever the reason, the bugs here are definitely thriving. You keep walking, following a narrow animal trail. The mud squelches underfoot. Your skin itches constantly. Between the spores, the humidity, and the questionable plant life, you're a walking allergic reaction. Eventually, you find a grove where the trees are spaced wider. The undergrowth is thinner, almost trampled. You pause. Something about this feels inhabited. A crunch to your left. You whirl. A juvenile ankylosaurus emerges from the bushes, its club tail swaying lazily, its back armored like a living tank. It snorts at you unimpressed, then starts munching on ferns. You take a step back. A twig snaps underfoot, and that's when you see its mother. She's twice the size, eyes locked on you, tail raised in a slow, deliberate arc. You do not move, not a twitch, not a blink. You've never been more aware of your mortality. But after a long moment, she huffs, turns, and waddles away, club tail swinging like a medieval weapon. You exhale, collapse, laugh a little, deliriously. As the sun begins to sink behind a bank of ashy clouds, you realize you survived another day. But far, far above you, way beyond the clouds, something small and fast is beginning to enter Earth's gravitational pull. It's still too far to see, but it's coming. You wake up to buzzing. Not the soft kind, like bees in a cartoon. No, this is a low, droning thrum of a million wings moving in furious harmony. It's still dark, mist rising from the jungle floor like breath from a sleeping monster. And all around you, insects, lots of them. You swat at your neck. Something crunches. Another one crawls into your shirt. You shriek quietly, doing a panic dance that's equal parts horror and interpretive theater. When the mist clears, you see the source. A mangrove-like swamp, thick with gnarled roots and stagnant pools, stretches out before you. And there, dancing above the black water, are the bugs. So many bugs. Some glitter like beetles. Others throb with internal bioluminescence. One the size of a soup bowl lands on a log and glares at you like you're the weird one. These are the swamp territories of prehistoric insects. Titanobugs, nightmare mosquitoes, giant wasps that hum with menace. You take a cautious step forward. A dragonfly with a wingspan the length of your forearm zips by your face, sounding like a mini helicopter with commitment issues. Now, technically, the famous Meganeura, those giant dragonflies, peaked in the Carboniferous period. But in this rich, oxygen-heavy environment, you wouldn't put it past evolution to have a few surprise guests hanging around. You wrap a wet cloth around your nose to filter the air. Not that it helps much. The stench is brutal. Sulfur, rotting plant matter, and something disturbingly sweet, like decaying fruit or a forgotten lunchbox left in the sun. You wade into the mangroves, sloshing through warm, brackish water. Everything hisses. Everything moves. The roots twist beneath your feet, like they're trying to trip you on purpose. One root looks suspiciously like a tail until it blinks and slides into the muck. Probably just an eel. Probably. You push forward, looking for higher ground. You don't find it. Instead, you find them. Hanging upside down from a low, vine-covered branch are two creatures, feathered, beaked, with long claws curled inward. At first you think they're birds. But no, these are weird. Their wings are leathery, almost bat-like, and their bodies twitch in sleep. They're Nyctosaurus, pterosaurs. Not technically dinosaurs, but close cousins. Historians still argue whether certain species nested deep inland like this or stayed coastal. But clearly, these two didn't get the memo. You tiptoe beneath them, holding your breath. A single sneeze and they'll wake. And then it's all dive bombing, screaming, and the possibility of losing an ear. Thankfully, you make it past them, barely. But just as you begin to relax, something thunks against your leg. It's soft, it's damp, and it's smiling. You look down. It's a Calmonodon, a prehistoric amphibian with a face like a grumpy pug. It blinks at you unimpressed, then flops back into the water with a wet plorp. You sigh. Everything here either wants to eat you or judge you, sometimes both. By mid-morning, the heat returns with a vengeance. The air presses down like a wet pillow. You're sweating so hard it feels like your bones are melting. Bugs dive bomb your face, trying to drink from your eyelids. You slap wildly, earning dozens of itchy welts and the growing suspicion that you're the Swamp Buffet special. You find a patch of semi-dry ground and sit, just for a moment, just to think. But then you hear it, a weird clattering. You look up. Two beetles are fighting over a chunk of fruit, antennae lock like fencing foils. One flips the other, dramatically. You're watching ancient bug wrestling. It's oddly entertaining. Then comes the worst sound so far today. Squish. You look down. Your foot has sunk into something full of eggs, thousands of them, translucent, jiggling, and very, very hatching. Tiny larval things begin squirming out. They ride over your boots, your ankles, nope, you're gone. You bowl from the swamp, tripping over roots, slapping bugs off your neck, screaming hoarsely. You trip over a vine, land in a puddle, and roll to a stop next to a log covered in red fungus. The fungus pulses, just a little. You don't breathe until you've crawled 50 feet away from it. The whole place feels alive in the worst way possible. Every surface is colonized, bugs, mold, slime, plants with mouths. You eventually reach a clearing where the air is clearer, the bugs fewer. A fallen tree gives you shelter, and you collapse beside it, panting. Your arms are covered in bites. You smell like mildew and panic. Your nerves are fried. But you made it. The buzzing is behind you. The worst of the swamp is done. You hope. You glance at the sky. It's still midday, but the light seems thinner now, like a film of dust is slowly building overhead. And then you notice something stranger. The birds, or rather the lack of them. Where earlier you'd heard chirping, flapping, calls echoing to the canopy, now there's silence. Nothing moves. Even the bugs seem to pause. Something is shifting. Night comes quickly in the Cretaceous. 1 minute you're squinting at dusty sunbeams filtering through tangled branches, and the next, darkness slinks in like a silent cat. No twilight, no graceful fade, just shadows swallowing everything. And you have no fire. That's not for lack of trying. You scrape sticks together, rubbed stones, whispered pleas to whatever fire god dinosaurs might have worshipped. Nothing. The only heat you have is your own sweaty body and the simmering rage of being completely, utterly unequipped. So you huddle beneath a thick root overhang, arms wrapped around your knees, listening to the jungle breathe. Then it stops breathing. The usual nighttime chorus, chirps, hoots, rustling underbrush, goes silent. You hold your breath. Something is nearby. A low rustle, then a snap. You freeze. The moonlight isn't much, just a pale smear through the canopy, but it's enough to outline movement. Long, deliberate steps, a sway of tail, a glint of eyeshine. It's a predator. Again, you resist the urge to scream. You've seen Dakotaraptor. You've seen T-Rex. You're running out of new horrors, except this one's quiet, careful, calculating. Truden maybe, smallish, about your size, but with keen senses, retractable claws, and, according to fossil studies, a brain-to-body ratio suspiciously close to modern birds. Historians still argue if Truden was truly smart or just good at not walking into trees. But in this moment, the thing creeping closer definitely feels like it knows what it's doing. It sniffs the air. You stop breathing. Then something distracts it. A rustle in the bushes to your left. The Truden turns, tail twitching. It slips away silently, gone like smoke. You exhale, trembling. But now you're wide awake. The dark in this era isn't peaceful. It's charged, electric. Every sound feels amplified. Water drips somewhere in rhythmic pulses. A branch falls with the subtlety of a gunshot. You flinch. You wish you had a flashlight, a blanket, a granola bar, anything modern. Instead, you make do. You scrape together leaves to insulate yourself. You pile a few rocks at the opening of your root cave. Not much protection, but it makes you feel safer. Sometimes that's enough. You drift in and out of sleep. Each time you wake, something new is happening. Once, you catch a glimpse of glowworms weaving through the brush, tiny sparks blinking like fairy lights. Another time, you swear you hear whispering. But it's probably wind through hollow logs, right? At some point, a family of tiny mammals curls up nearby, possibly Didelphodon or something similar. Rodent-like, furry, unbothered by your presence. One even sniffs your foot before curling into a warm donut shape and snoozing. It's kind of sweet. You realize that not everything in this world wants to kill you. Some of it just wants to sleep, eat, and avoid eye contact. You relate deeply. Hours pass. The sky lightens slightly. The moon slips behind cloud cover. Morning is coming. You think you've made it through the worst. And then, screaming, not human, not mammalian, a tearing, avian shriek that pierces through the trees like a siren. You leap to your feet, heart hammering. A flock explodes out of the jungle canopy, small feathered creatures, flapping chaotically, diving and swerving like panicked starlings. Something spooked them, and then you see why. Fire. Not close, not immediate, but real. A distant line of orange glows beyond the trees. Faint sparks drift upward into the dark. You smell burning resin, hear the faint crackling. You squint. It's not volcanic fire. It's something else. Possibly a dry lightning strike from last night's storm. And suddenly you realize, without modern firefighting, without humans to clear underbrush or reroute wind, this kind of wildfire can spread. Fast. You sprint. The terrain changes rapidly in the dark. Roots become tripwires. Branches claw at your arms. You fall twice. Scratch your knee. Get tangled in a vine that seems to actively hate you. You finally reach a stream and jump in, slogging along its path to stay low and wet. That's when you hear them. Footsteps. Splashing. Not yours. You twist around. It's another human. Wait. No. Just your reflection. You are feral. Caked in mud. Leaves in your hair. One sock missing. You blink at yourself. Almost laugh. Almost cry. Then a shadow passes over you. You look up. A pterosaur glides silently above the trees, wings stretched wide, barely flapping. It doesn't look down. It's heading away from the fire, like everything else. As dawn creeps over the horizon, the fire glow fades into dull red streaks behind you. You find a dry patch of pebbles and collapse. You survived your first night with no fire, no tools, and no clue. You close your eyes. You earn this nap. You wake to the strangest sky you've seen yet. It's morning, probably, but the sun looks like it's shining through a dirty fish tank. The light is soft, sickly, with an amber tint that makes the entire jungle feel like a sepia-toned dream. Shadows are long and warped, stretching across the ground like they're trying to escape something. You sit up groggy and damp. Your body aches from sleeping on rocks. Your arms are covered in bites. Your lips are cracked, and your stomach's making noises normally reserved for malfunctioning engines. But what stops you cold is the air. It's cool, not chilly exactly, but for the first time in days, it isn't hot enough to cook an omelet on your shoulder. A breeze whispers through the leaves, carrying a dry scent, like ash and dust after fireworks. You look up. The sky has turned weird. High above, wispy clouds smear across the heavens in long, twisted patterns, like brushstrokes gone wrong. The light feels distant. You spot a halo around the sun, a faint ring of pale color that shimmers like oil on water. Now, you're not a climate scientist, but even you can tell something is off. Paleontologists believe that in the final days of the Cretaceous, weather patterns may have already started to shift. Some suggest that volcanic gases, like sulfur dioxide, were beginning to scatter sunlight, cooling the Earth ever so slightly. Others argue it's just seasonal variance. But standing here, in the eerie calm of a jungle wrapped in fog and filtered light, it feels like the planet is holding its breath. You continue walking, quieter now. Even the animals seem subdued. The usual screeches and hoots are muffled. Somewhere in the distance, a Corythosaurus lets out a call, but it sounds more like a question than a warning. You pass a small clearing and find an odd sight. Nothing. No bugs. No birds. Just stillness. You pause, senses on high alert. The ground feels firm beneath your feet, but the air tingles. Not electric, more like watching. You scan the canopy. Nothing. Then whoosh. A gust of wind rushes through the clearing, swirling leaves into the air like a sudden exhale from the forest itself. It passes and the silence returns, thicker now. You move on quickly. As you press deeper into the woods, the trees grow sparse, the underbrush thinning. The landscape is changing. You climb a rocky rise, pushing through tufts of fern and stiff, dry grass until you reach the top and finally see it. The coast. An ancient shoreline sprawls before you, where shallow lagoons glisten under the weird sun. The sea stretches endlessly, calm but strangely muted, like someone turned the saturation down. Patches of tide pools the land, glinting in odd colors. Beyond them, dark cliffs rise in the distance, black basalt, sharp and jagged. The breeze here carries salt and something sharper, something metallic. You make your way toward the water, stepping carefully between tide pools filled with squirming things. Tiny trilobite-like creatures scatter at your shadow. A crab scuttles sideways, flips over, and just lies there like it gave up on being a crab. You sit on a dry rock and stare at the sky again. Still wrong. A second sun flare blinks near the horizon, like a camera flash, except it leaves an afterimage. You blink it away, but your skin prickles. Then you notice something above the water. Tiny pinpricks of light. At first, you think it's the sun bouncing off the waves. But no, they're moving. Not stars. Not reflections. Just little glints. Irregular. Shifting. You stare longer. Still not sure. It could be nothing. Just weird ocean dust. But in the back of your brain, a whisper rises. What if it's already begun? Scientists still argue whether animals sense the asteroid before impact, through sound, magnetic shifts, pressure waves. Some believe even days before, subtle signs might have triggered behavioral changes. You can't prove it, but the silence, the light, the cold, all of it feels like a warning. You spot something overhead. A flock of pteranodons, wings stretched wide, gliding inland. They don't flap. They flee. You rise. That's when you feel it. Not an earthquake. Not a sound. A pressure. Low. Deep. Subtle. Your ears pop. The air feels heavier. You breathe in and cough, dust in your lungs, or maybe panic. The jungle behind you stirs uneasily. Birds erupt from the trees, flying low and hard. You turn and look back. Far on the horizon, where the sea meets the sky, a shimmer pulses. Just for a moment, it could be an illusion, a heat mirage, a reflection, or it could be the first echo of something vast, something incoming. You don't know yet, but your instincts do. You start walking, fast. You're running again, not sprinting. Your legs gave up on that fantasy 2 days ago, but moving fast enough to feel like you might escape something. Trouble is, you don't know what you're escaping. The coastline behind you looks normal. The jungle ahead still hums with its ancient life. But everything in your body, every prickling hair, every tightening nerve, is saying the same thing: move. The animals agree. You see it in the herds. A wave of Maiasaura crashes through the trees to your right, dozens of them, big and bulky, their duck-billed faces panicked, their footfalls pounding like drum beats. The ground trembles beneath them. They aren't migrating. They're bolting, and not just them. A few moments later, Pachyrhinosaurus thunder by in the opposite direction, their thick nasal bosses glistening with sweat, snorting clouds of breath into the cooler air. A younger one stumbles, recovers, and charges on, pushed by sheer herd momentum. You press yourself against a tree and watch in awe and confusion. It's like the entire Cretaceous just got the same terrible memo. Run. Then comes the rain. No warning. No saw patter. Just an explosion of water from the sky. Warm, thick, heavy. It soaks you instantly, plastering your hair to your face and turning the trail to slick mush beneath your feet. The herds don't slow. If anything, they speed up. You try to follow them. Safer to move with the mass, right? But quickly realize you can't keep up. They're built for this. You're a barefoot disaster with a questionable breakfast and an attitude problem. So you veer off the trail, sliding down a muddy slope, clinging to vines, almost flipping into a ravine full of suspiciously active ferns. Lightning splits the sky. Thunder follows like a punch to the chest. This is a normal storm. The air crackles with something extra, like the sky is charged, angry, waiting. You crawl into a hollow under a massive root system. It's tight but dry-ish. You curl up and try to breathe, and then it hits you, not a lightning bolt, a shock wave, subtle at first, like the ground shifted just a little too far to the left. Then again, then a groaning creak from the jungle itself, as if 1,000 tree trunks all exhaled at once. The storm intensifies. Rain pelts you sideways. A tree snaps nearby. Another crashes to the ground with the slow-motion finality of a falling skyscraper. You crawl back out, driven by the pressure building in your ears. And that's when you hear the screaming. Not human, not even dinosaur. The sky is screaming. Wind lashes the treetops, bending them like straws. Debris flies past, leaves, branches, something that might have been a nest. Everything is moving. Everything is panicking. You scramble uphill, following animal trails slick with rain and claw marks. You crest a ridge just as the storm momentarily breaks, and freeze. Below you, a flood. A wall of muddy water barrels down a valley, carrying trees, rocks, and something massive and lifeless. Maybe a Torosaurus, maybe just a log with horns. Hard to tell in this much chaos. This is what a flash flood looks like, when there's no one to name it, just a raw, thundering force of gravity and water and time. You back away, slip, slide halfway down the other side of the ridge, and slam into a stand of ferns. You don't get up. You just lie there, chest heaving, rain falling, watching the sky go from gray to purple to green. Green? Yeah. A weird, eerie tint hangs in clouds now. a sulfurous filter laid over everything. It's beautiful and horrifying. Historians still argue whether atmospheric conditions change in the hours or days before the asteroid hit. Maybe small meteoric fragments broke off in advance. Maybe gas vents burst open. Maybe it's just your nerves. But the sky is wrong. And then there's a noise. A low rumble, not from the earth this time, but from above. You squint. Something cuts through the clouds far, far overhead. Not the asteroid, not yet. This is smaller. Maybe debris. Maybe fallout from distant volcanoes. It flashes across the sky like a silent lightning bolt, leaving a trail of glowing dust. Whatever it is, it doesn't stop. It's going somewhere fast. You sit in the mud, jaws slack, unable to form words. The flood recedes behind you. The herds vanish into the jungle. The storm begins to drift away. And for one weird, breathless moment, silence. Just dripping branches, distant thunder, and the feeling, deep in your gut, that tomorrow's going to be worse, much worse. You descend into silence. Not peace, not calm, silence. The kind that makes your ears strain, waiting for something, anything, to break it. No bird calls, no chittering bugs, no breeze rustling the trees. Just your own squelching footsteps and the faint, rhythmic thud of your heart, too loud in your chest. You've reached the coast again. The inland chaos, stampeding herds, flooding valleys, has driven you back toward the ocean. It stretches out before you, pale and unsettling. The surf crashes in muffled bursts, as if the air itself has become too thick to carry sound. The wind here is sharp now. Cold, salty. It cuts through the jungle humidity like a scalpel. You pull your makeshift leaf wrap tighter around your shoulders, but it's more ceremonial than functional at this point. You're soaked, bruised, and barely upright. And still no animals. You trek toward a rocky outcrop overlooking a tide pool and lower yourself onto the warm stone. Your muscles creak. Something inside your ankle pops. The ache in your legs has settled into a dull roar that now feels like an old roommate, annoying but familiar. Out in the shallows, you spot something unusual. A long, sinuous shape rises briefly above the waves, then disappears. Not a dolphin, not a fish, a marine reptile, maybe Mosasaurus. It breaches once more, then vanishes again beneath the surf. Even it seems to be retreating. Closer to shore, a group of small, gull-like pterosaurs, pterodostro, perhaps, circle above the water. But instead of calling out to each other, they just flap silently. You watch one dip toward the surface, snag a fish, then shoot upward with sharp jolt, and then spiral out of control and fall. It doesn't rise again. You wait. Nothing. Even the ocean is acting strange. Patches of the water ripple without wind. Foam gathers in clumps, oddly thick, almost gelatinous. And further down the beach, a line of jellyfish-like creatures has washed ashore. Their translucent bodies pulse faintly in the strange light. You stand and walk toward them, curious despite yourself. They look alien, like deep-sea organisms that wander up the wrong food chain. One twitches. You jump back. Another pops, releasing a puff of foul-smelling vapor. You gag and retreat, covering your face. Behind you, the jungle rustles. You spin, but it's not danger. It's wind. Stronger now. Colder. It whips across the coastline, scattering sand and salt spray, sending the pterosaurs reeling inland. That's when you realize something new. You're not just cold because it's windy. The temperature is dropping. Fast. Your breath fogs. You look up at the sky. Still that strange green-gray, but darker, heavier, like a storm that can't quite make up its mind. The sun's position is barely visible through the haze. It's maybe mid-morning, but it feels like dusk. You sit again, trying to puzzle it out. You remember something vague, how a huge volcanic eruption or asteroid impact could loft fine dust into the stratosphere, blocking sunlight. Scientists still debate which had a greater effect in the extinction event: the long, choking veil of volcanic ash or the sudden shock of an impact winter. But standing here, squinting at a dimmed sun on what should be a bright tropical day, you start to understand. The planet is dimming. And yet, it's not quiet anymore. Something returns. A faint, steady beat, low, far off. Rhythmic, like the sound of surf beneath stone. You listen harder. It's not the sea. It's drumming. You follow it along the beach, past broken driftwood and tide pools fizzing with unknown organisms. The sound gets louder, clearer, more deliberate. Then you see it. A group of dinosaurs, hadrosaurs maybe, gathered on a rocky shelf overlooking the sea. They're not running, not grazing, just standing still. Every few seconds, one stomps a foot, then another, a low, resonant thump. It echoes off the stone and rolls out across the water. You crouch behind a boulder, watching. They do it again, slowly, in sync. Are they communicating? Mourning? Sensing something? Historians still argue over whether dinosaurs exhibited ritual behaviors. Maybe these were just frightened, acting out a stress response. Or maybe, just maybe, they knew something was coming and this was their version of prayer. Suddenly, a bright flash streaks across the sky. You duck, shielding your eyes. Not lightning, something higher, like a spark igniting the edge of space. The sound follows a few seconds later, deep booming, vibrating in your bones. You rise. The hadrosaurs scatter. Out over the ocean, a strange line of light ripples along the horizon. Then it's gone. The waves grow faster, choppier. A new wind howls across the beach. And all you can do is stand there, soaked, freezing, stomach growling, heart pounding, and wait. You don't know when the birds stop singing. But once you notice, you can't unnotice. No chirps, no wing beats, not even the gentle whoosh of feathers overhead. The sky, once dotted with flocks of darting, gliding creatures, Confuciusornis, Ichthyornis, even the odd pteranodon, is now eerily empty. The beach feels hollow without them. You climb a ridge to get a better look inland, hoping to spot some sign of normalcy, some return to the chaotic, noisy Cretaceous you begrudgingly grown used to. Instead, the view stretches wide and silent, forests of fern and conifer, trembling slightly in the cold wind, a distant river carving a glinting ribbon through the land, and nothing moving. The quiet settles over your shoulders like a wet blanket. You sit on a rock, gaze tilted toward the weird sky. The clouds are still thick, and that unnatural green hue remains, like the world's been tinted with something radioactive. Sunlight tries to poke through, but loses the fight halfway. And then something flickers. Not on the ground. Above. You blink. There's a shimmer. A soft, fast streak that disappears as quickly as it appeared. Not a bird. Not a shooting star. You stare harder. Then again, another flicker. And another. Tiny shadows moving far, far up in the sky. Your stomach sinks. Back in your world. You'd call it atmospheric debris. Maybe space junk. Here now it's something worse. Could it be fragments? Small pieces of the asteroid, breaking up as they scream toward Earth's gravity well? Scientists today still puzzle over whether many impacts came first, peppering the skies before the main event. Watching now, it doesn't feel like theory anymore. It feels real. You press a hand to the cold rock beneath you. It's solid, steady, for now, but the animals don't seem to trust it. You hear them before you see them, a slow drumbeat of hooves, claws, paws. a low hum of breath and movement. Then a group of creatures emerges from the tree line, Struthiomimus, sleek and ostrich-like, legs pumping fast but silent. They weave together like a school of fish, vanishing into the brush. Moments later, a family of small horned dinosaurs, Leptoceratops, maybe, trots by in tight formation. The juveniles stick close to the adults. None of them look back. They're not running from you. They're just leaving. The air feels thinner, drier. You cough and sit back. You're tired, not just physically. Deep down tired, like your body knows it's borrowing time. The wind shifts again, and now there's a new smell. It's faint but distinct metal ash ozone, like the inside of an old electronics store after a fire. You stand. Something's different about the light. You look up. This time you see it. A thin white streak, like chalk dragged across the sky. High up, fast, blazing. It vanishes behind a bank of clouds. But now the feeling in your gut isn't just nerves. It's dread. Somewhere behind the clouds, something is coming. Still far, still unseen, but closer every hour. You look around, hoping for signs that you're imagining it all. But even the plants seem withdrawn, leaves curled, branches sagging, like the world itself is preparing to brace. You walk, no direction, just movement. Maybe if you stay in motion, it won't feel like time is standing still. As you pass a cluster of hollow trees, a sudden flutter stops you. A bird, or something very close to one. It's tiny, smaller than your fist, with iridescent feathers and wide, blinking eyes. It flits to a branch just above your head, cocks its head, and stares at you. You stare back. There's no sound, just wind. Then another joins it, and another. In less than a minute, the tree is full, dozens of little creatures, perched in stillness, watching the sky. Not you, the sky. It's like they know. Historians still debate whether animals sense the impact before it arrived. Some say birds and small reptiles fled en masse. Others argue there's no way they could have known. But watching this now, the silent congregation of eyes tilted upward, you believe it. They do. A gust of wind breaks the spell. The birds scatter all at once, diving into the jungle with frantic, whispering flaps. And you're alone again, but not for long, because now the sky is rumbling. Not thunder, something deeper, bigger. The clouds tremble. You feel it before you hear it. A low-frequency vibration crawling up from the soles of your feet. The kind of sound that doesn't just fill the air, it becomes it. You don't know what tomorrow brings. But tonight, even the birds are afraid. The shimmer returns. This time you don't blink. It cuts across the heavens like a glowing tear in the fabric of the sky. Too fast to be a cloud, too bright to be a star. A fiery filament, arcing downward in eerie silence. You stare and stare. Then suddenly realize you're holding your breath. You exhale slowly, a curl of fog escaping your lips. The air has turned cold enough that every breath feels like steam. Your fingers tremble, not from fear anymore, but from sheer exposure. You're wrapped in damp foliage and mud, and the last warmth of the Cretaceous is leaking out of the world like water through a cracked basin. You squint upward. There, again. A second streak, then a third. Tiny meteors? Microscopic pieces of the Chicxulub asteroid, maybe burning up as they enter the atmosphere. Some theories suggest that these micro-impacts rain down in the hours or minutes before the main event, setting fires and sending animals into blind panic. You're not a scientist, but the way the horizon keeps flashing like a camera trying to focus on its last photo, it doesn't feel like weather. It feels like a countdown. You back away from a ridge, into the thicker canopy, hoping the trees might shield you. They don't. If anything, they make it worse. Every falling leaf feels suspicious. Every shifting shadow makes your skin crawl. The forest is tense, alive, watching. You pause beneath a massive cycad's tree and press your palm to its bark. It's warm, vibrating, even, or maybe you are. The difference has become hard to tell. Suddenly, something darts past your feet. A rodent-like mammal, short, quick, formatted with mud. It doesn't stop. It doesn't even look at you. Just scampers past, like it knows the schedule and you're late. You keep moving. The jungle opens again near a rocky slope. You scramble up, shoes long gone, feet raw and blistered. At the top, you find what might once have been a nesting ground. Flattened grasses, cracked eggshells, footprints the size of beach umbrellas. Empty now. Nothing nests anymore. Not when the sky is falling. You sit on a warm rock, catching your breath, and that's when you feel it. The wind, but not ordinary wind. It has weight, like the air is pressing against you from all sides, squeezing your ribs just slightly. You cough, then you see it, a ripple in the clouds. Subtle, but real. A faint, pulsing ring expands across the sky, like the surface of water disturbed by a pebble. Except it's not water, it's space. You blink again. Is that fire? Faint orange licks at the edge of the sky, low on the horizon. Not a wildfire, not the sun. It doesn't move like light should. It shimmers, curling like heat waves rising off a blacktop. You look around. Even the insects have vanished. You're alone in a world holding its breath. You try to catalog your options. Hide? From what? Run? To where? Cry. You're too dehydrated. You settle for standing. Something glints on the far edge of the jungle. Not light, not metal, just wrong. A flicker, a warping shimmer. Like someone turned the atmosphere to glass and cracked it slightly. Your skin tingles. Your ears pop. You crouch low, instinctively. There's a pressure now, heavier than before. You can't hear anything specific, but the absence of sound is screaming at you. And then, almost imperceptibly, the color of the sky shifts again, from greenish-gray to orange. Then, boom, you're knocked flat by a gust of wind so violent it strips leaves from trees and hurls twigs like darts. You hit the ground hard, taste mud, your ears ring, your vision blurs. When you lift your head, the sky is on fire. Not fully, not yet, but streaks of flame are spreading along the clouds. Trails of molten color ripple outward from a single, blinding point. The asteroid? It hasn't hit. Not yet, but it's here. You roll onto your back, eyes wide. The shimmer intensifies. The whole sky is glowing now, pulsing orange, red, and white. The heat reaches you seconds later, dry and sharp, like opening an oven that's too hot. Your skin prickles. Your lung seize. You crawl behind a rock outcrop, heart pounding. Try to make yourself small. The ground trembles again, then settles. And then, like nothing happened, the wind dies. The air stills. The birds don't return. The sky pulses with firelight, but the noise fades. You wait, alone, beneath a burning sky. The blast doesn't come all at once. It begins as a sensation, a prickling at the back of your neck, like static building before a storm. Then the ground quivers once, twice, then rolls beneath you in a wave, like the earth is stretching in its sleep and forgetting you're on its back. Then, finally, impact. The sound doesn't break. It erupts. Not thunder, not wind. It's like the air is being ripped in half. Your hands fly to your ears, but it's too late. The roar slams into your chest like a wall. You scream, but you can't even hear yourself. The entire world is roaring. And then the ground throws you. Not a slip, not a stumble. A full body, No can send hurl into a pile of rocks and leaves. You bounce, roll, come to stop behind a fallen log, and stay there, curled tight, shaking. You're not alone. Animals streak past, terrified, mindless, stampeding. A triceratops bursts through the underbrush, crashing into trees like a wrecking ball, its eyes wide, foam at the corners of its beak. Behind it, a flood of smaller creatures, reptiles, birds, even mammals, all charging in one direction, away. From what? You crawl up, using the log for balance. Your ears ring, your skin burns, your throat tastes like copper and smoke. You stagger toward a break in the trees. Then you see it, far on the horizon, where sky meets earth. A mushroom cloud is blooming, not gray, not white, black and orange, edged in crimson, roaring skyward like a demon breaking free of its cage. The Chicxulub impact. 66 million years later, scientists will estimate that the asteroid struck at 20 kilometers per second, that it hit what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, that it released energy equivalent to over 1 billion atomic bombs. But right now, you just know one thing. It landed. You brace yourself against a tree, barely able to stand. The shock wave reaches you again, this time in the form of wind. A violent, shrieking blast that peels bark from trees and lifts leaves into burning vortices. You duck. Something sharp whizzes past your head and buries itself in a trunk behind you. It's raining fire, not metaphorically. Actual, molten debris begins to fall from the sky, tiny glowing stones and smoldering ash, like a snow globe of apocalypse. You pull your shirt over your face, coughing hard. Everything smells like smoke, metal, and something else. Burning meat. You stumble into a ravine, hoping the rock walls will offer protection. They do, barely. The fire rain hisses and sparks on the stone, but it doesn't reach you here. You crouch under an overhang, breathing shallowly. From up above comes the sound of trees, igniting, one by one, then all at once. The jungle is catching. The canopy glows red. Smoke curls over the lip of the ravine like a reaching hand. You press yourself back into the stone. It's hot, not warm. Hot. The ground beneath you steams. Water trapped in the rocks begins to sizzle and pop. You move deeper into a narrow crevice where the air is still breathable. Barely. Above, the world is ending. The sun is gone, replaced by a seething red glow that paints everything in rust-colored shadows. You close your eyes just to stop the sting. In the distance, there's another sound. Thunder? No. Louder. Mountains falling. The asteroid impact is causing quakes, avalanches, tsunamis. You're inland, but the vibrations still rattle the walls. Dust rains from the ceiling. A few small stones bounce near your feet. You curl tighter. You don't cry. There's no moisture left for that. Outside, a T-Rex bellows. It sounds wounded, desperate, alone, and then it stops. You don't hear it fall, but you know it did. The jungle, what's left of it, hums with fire and death. The air becomes thick, toxic. You breathe through your sleeve. Your skin feels scorched. Your eyelids are gritty. You shift, trying not to think, not to feel, just to wait. Then something huge explodes nearby. A tree? A rock fall? You don't know. You just shut your eyes tighter and think of nothing. Let it happen. You've done everything a human could possibly do. You lose track of time. It could be minutes, hours, days. The world beyond your crevice is a shifting, howling wall of smoke and fire, and you are buried inside it, clinging to the cold stone like it's the only real thing left. When you finally open your eyes, it's darker, but not night, not the kind of darkness where stars appear and frogs chirp and the air cools down. This is a thick darkness, ashy, greasy, choking. A curtain drawn across the sky. Even when you crawl out, your first breath tastes like charcoal and blood. Everything smells like something that shouldn't be burning. You step outside, slowly, like a diver surfacing after too long underwater. And what you see doesn't feel real. The trees are gone. Not fallen. Not blackened. Just missing. Entire trunks vaporized. The ground is a smear of soot and bone, pitted with craters and fallen debris. A dinosaur skeleton lies splayed across a ridge, half buried in ash, its mouth still open in what might have been a scream. You stagger forward, feet crunching over glassy shards, molten rock flash-cooled into sharp, shimmering fragments. The entire jungle has been reduced to a sketch. Somewhere above, the clouds boil. They're no longer drifting. They churn, black with hints of orange, glowing faintly from internal lightning. There's no sun, no warmth, just a deadening dimness that wraps around everything. It's cold now, really cold. You wrap your arms around yourself, shivering violently. The temperature has dropped by what feels like 20, 30 degrees since the blast. The firestorms are gone, but they've left behind a planetary shadow. This is the start of what scientists call the impact winter. Dust, ash, and sulfur particles blasted into the stratosphere now reflect sunlight away from Earth. Temperatures plummet. Photosynthesis halts. Ecosystems collapse. You step carefully over a fallen log, one of the few intact ones, charred on one side, frosted on the other. The contrast is jarring. You keep walking through gray landscapes that might have been forests just yesterday. You don't see any animals. No dinosaurs. No mammals. No birds. Just silence. Even the wind seems exhausted. Eventually, you find a depression in the earth. Not a crater, but close. It's filled with water, murky, smoking faintly at the edges, but not boiling anymore. A hot spring? A runoff pool from the impact zone? Hard to say. You kneel and sip from the edge. It's warm, metallic. You cough but don't stop. It's the only water you've seen in hours. Nearby, you spot movement. You freeze, then realize it's just a lizard. Small, dirty, missing part of its tail. But alive. You stare at each other. It flicks its tongue once, then vanishes into the rubble. You feel strangely encouraged. The sky rumbles again, not with thunder, with emptiness. You climb to higher ground, over scorched hills, past a forest of smoldering trunks. On the far side of the ridge, a massive field of open terrain awaits. Flat, desolate, cratered. And in the center, a burrow. Not deep, not fancy, just a hole in the earth, surrounded by fresh scratch marks. You crawl toward it. Inside, warmth. Not much, but enough. You duck in, curl up, realize someone's already here. A mammal, furry, sleeping, barely the size of your hand. You make eye contact. It doesn't bite you, doesn't run, just shifts over slightly, making space. You lie down beside it, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you sleep. Not because the danger is over, but because somehow you're still here. When you wake, it's still dark. You don't know how long you've been asleep. Hours, maybe. A full day. Maybe two. Time has melted into a haze of hunger, cold, and that strange, endless quiet. The burrow is still warm, barely. Your little mammal roommate is gone, or maybe deeper underground. You're alone again. You crawl out slowly, half expecting to find a different world waiting. Something greener. Something growing. You don't. The landscape is still ash. The sky is still smoke. But something is changing. The silence isn't complete anymore. There's a faint hum, like a breeze trying to remember how to be a breeze. The clouds above are still thick, but the glow behind them has shifted slightly. from orange-gray to a muted steel blue. You walk, not because you have somewhere to go, just because staying still feels like giving up. The world is softer now, not in a gentle way, more like everything has collapsed inward. Trees have become jagged silhouettes. The rivers, once swollen and angry, now trickle sluggishly through toxic silt. Ferns droop, blacken at the edges. But here and there, life stirs. A beetle crawls across a scorched log. A single bird call whistles weakly through the ash-thick air. Just one note, then silence again. You follow it anyway. Hours pass, or maybe more. You stumble across a shallow basin filled with stagnant water and take a few bitter sips. In the muddy shore, you spot prints, three-toed, delicate, avian. You squint up at the sky. No movement. Not yet, but the air tastes less like fire, more like dust and time. Paleontologists believe the days after the impact were colder than anything the dinosaurs had ever known. Some estimates say temperatures dropped by over 25 degrees Celsius globally. The ash cloud may have lingered for months, years. You're living in the start of that winter. It's not beautiful, but it's quiet. You climb a hill littered with bones, bleached and cracked from sudden exposure. You don't cry. You're beyond that now. But you do pause to touch one. The edge is smooth, worn, still warm from the sun. Faint as it is, at the top of the hill, you stop. You can see everything. Charcoal forests, distant, foggy craters, the coastline, smudged and broken, and one thin plume of smoke still curling from the impact zone far to the west, where the asteroid punched a hole into history. That's when you hear it again. The bird. You turn. It flits across the horizon, small, dark, fast, alive. It lands on a branch, cocks its head, then hops once and vanishes into the wreckage. You smile, just a little, because something survived. And maybe so will you. You sit on the hilltop as the cold wind whistles by. You survived 10 days. You outlasted the stampedes, the fire, the silence. The dinosaurs didn't. Most of the world didn't. But you did. And as the ash settles and the wind carries that lonely bird call across the ravaged land, you feel something else stir in your chest. Not fear, not grief, but possibility. Now let yourself breathe. You've made it through the last day of the dinosaurs. You've walked alongside giants, run from monsters, and stared straight into the eyes of extinction. But here you are, still breathing, still standing, beneath a sky that hasn't quite decided whether to collapse or rebuild. The worst is over. Not gone, but over. Around you, the world is quieter now. The fire is burned out. The stampedes have passed. The sky, once a furnace, has cooled into a heavy, soft blanket of cloud. Close your eyes. Feel the hush settle into your bones. Imagine the ash falling gently now, no longer choking, just drifting like gray snow. Imagine the trees beginning, slowly, to recover. The first green sprout pushing out of soot. The first mammal curling up in a safe den. The first surviving bird testing the air. The earth will take time, but it will heal, and you, small, exhausted, and soot-covered, will watch the healing happen. You'll mark the days by the return of warmth, of color, of sound. You'll watch the world turn from shadow to spark. And when you're ready, you'll step out into it. Soft footfalls on soil still warm from memory. A future born from fire. A silence waiting to be filled. Sleep now, time traveler. The end of the world has passed. And morning, some morning will come again.